What if there was a brotherhood? Even though their existence remains debated, the Rosicrucian myth has carried powerful symbols. Symbols that many believe conceal a path to alchemical transformation and the awakening of the divine spark within. The Rosicrucians claimed to hold the key to uniting science, art, and mysticism, to lifting humanity into a new age of enlightenment. But who were they really? What secrets did they guard? And why did their quiet influence echo through revolutions, philosophies, and occult traditions for centuries? This is not just history. This is a journey into one of the greatest esoteric mysteries of all time. The mysteries of the Rosicrucians uncovered begin now. Part 1. The birth of a secret brotherhood. In the early 1600s, strange documents began to circulate across Europe. They spoke of a hidden order, a brotherhood known only by its cryptic name, the Rosicrucians. No one knew where they came from. No one could prove they existed. But their writings, the Fama Fraternitatis, the Confessio Fraternitatis, and the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz, ignited a wildfire of curiosity and fear. These manifestos told the story of a man named Christian Rosenkreutz, a mysterious figure said to have traveled across the East, studying alchemy, Kabbalah, Hermeticism, and secret teachings lost to the Western world. When he returned to Europe, he gathered a small circle of enlightened souls, dedicated to a radical mission to bring spiritual awakening to humanity. But here's where it gets stranger. The Brotherhood claimed no political power, no wealth, no public presence. They were invisible. Their mission was not domination, but transformation. They believed Europe was mired in ignorance, trapped between religious dogma and blind materialism. Their goal? To spark a renaissance of the soul, to fuse science, art, and spirituality into a living tapestry of transformation. And then came their symbol, the rose blooming at the center of a cross. It wasn't just a pretty emblem, it captured the heart of their message. The rose represented love, beauty, the soul's unfolding. The cross represented sacrifice, struggle, the intersection of heaven and earth. Together, they formed a living cipher dash, a secret language of the soul, a shimmering portal between worlds, a symbol meant to awaken the ready and confound the unready. But why the secrecy? Why hide such lofty intentions? Because Europe was a dangerous place for mystics. The Catholic Church hunted heresy. The monarchies feared anything that challenged authority. Openly sharing esoteric knowledge could lead to excommunication, or worse, execution. So the Rosicrucians wrapped themselves in myth. They published their ideas, but never revealed their faces. They spread their message, but stayed hidden in the shadows. Were they real? Or were the Manifestos a brilliant hoax designed to spark a new spiritual dialogue? Historians still debate this. But one thing is clear: the Rosicrucian idea took root. It inspired philosophers, alchemists, artists. It shaped revolutions, secret societies, mystical movements. It whispered of a hidden path, one that promised not just knowledge, but transformation. So as we step deeper into their world, remember, this is not just a story of the past. It is a living mystery, still waiting for seekers bold enough to follow its trail. Part 2. The Esoteric Teachings of the Rosicrucians. To understand the Rosicrucians, you must understand what they stood for. They were not just a secret society. They were carriers of a radical idea, that true transformation happens from the inside out, not through wealth, not through political power, but through the alchemy of the soul. Let's break this down. First, alchemy. Most people think of alchemy as a medieval attempt to turn lead into gold. But to the Rosicrucians, the real gold was spiritual. Alchemy meant transforming the dense, heavy aspects of the self, ego, ignorance, fear, into higher states of consciousness. This was called the Great Work. It wasn't about laboratories and flasks. It was about purifying the mind, shaping the emotional core, rekindling the ancient flame buried deep inside. Next, Hermeticism. Drawn from the mystical teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, Hermetic philosophy taught that the universe is a grand mirror. As above, so below. As within, so without. The Rosicrucians believed that by understanding the patterns of nature, the stars, the cycles, the seeker could unlock the hidden laws of existence. They blended science and mysticism, rejecting the idea that these were separate realms. For them, art, astronomy, mathematics, music were all reflections of the same cosmic intelligence. Then, Kabbalah. The Rosicrucians were deeply influenced by Jewish mysticism, especially the concept of the Tree of Life. To them, the Tree of Life was not just a symbol, it was a map dash, a guide for navigating the levels of consciousness, for understanding the flow of divine energy into the human experience. Each path, each sphere on the tree, represented an aspect of the self, a challenge, a lesson, a gateway to higher understanding. But perhaps their most radical idea was their vision of human destiny. The Rosicrucians believed that humanity was not meant to stay trapped in ignorance, fear, or superstition. They believed every individual had the potential to awaken as a microcosm of the divine, a living embodiment of cosmic truth. They imagined a future where science, art, philosophy, and spirit danced together in a luminous symphony, no longer clashing, but resonating in cosmic harmony. A world where seekers could rise above religious dogma, beyond political divisions, and stand in direct relationship with the divine. But this vision came at a cost, because in a Europe controlled by church and crown, such ideas were dangerous. To claim you could access truth without a priest, heresy. To suggest that transformation came from within, not through external rituals, rebellion. And so the Rosicrucians stayed hidden. They spread their teachings through symbols, manifestos, allegories, always careful, always guarded, yet their message endured, because it spoke to something timeless, the longing within every human soul. To awaken, to transform, to remember its own divine origin. Part 3. Decoding the Rosicrucian Symbols and Rituals. To understand the Rosicrucians, we must learn to read their symbols, because for them, symbols were not just decoration. They were living codes, maps pointing the way toward inner transformation. Start with their most famous emblem, the rose and the cross. The rose represents the soul. It blooms slowly, layer by layer, revealing hidden beauty, awakening to its own essence. The cross represents the material world, the trials, suffering, and sacrifices that shape human life. When combined, they create a powerful cipher, the union of spirit and matter, of heaven and earth, of divine potential expressed through human experience. To the Rosicrucians, this was not just a pretty image. It was an invitation, a call for seekers to awaken the rose within while carrying the cross of earthly existence. But the symbols go deeper. The circle represented unity, eternity, the infinite. The triangle pointed to the trinity of body, mind, and spirit. The pentagram symbolized the microcosm, the human being as a reflection of the universe, bound by both earthly and divine forces. Each symbol was layered with meaning, designed to trigger recognition in the subconscious, to spark a process of awakening, long before the rational mind caught up. And then came the rituals. The Rosicrucians were not content with theory. They created structured initiations, step-by-step processes to guide the seeker through layers of understanding. These rituals were designed to confront the ego, to break old attachments, to purify the mind and heart. Initiates would pass through stages, symbolically dying to the old self, being reborn into a new awareness. They were tested, challenged, forced to face their shadows, because only by confronting the darkness within could they awaken the light. But here's the key. These rituals were not meant to create followers. They were meant to create masters. Individuals capable of walking their own path, awakening their own wisdom, carrying their own light into the world. The influence of these symbols and rituals spread far beyond the Brotherhood itself. You can see Rosicrucian motifs hidden in Renaissance art, in cathedral architecture, in mystical literature, alchemical texts, mystical diagrams, even modern secret societies carry echoes of Rosicrucian thought. Their fingerprints are everywhere, if you know how to look. So the next time you encounter a rose, a cross, a labyrinth, pause, because you may be standing at the threshold of a living mystery, one that has waited across centuries, whispering only to seekers bold enough to listen. You may be standing at the edge of a wisdom tradition that has whispered across centuries, inviting only the seekers bold enough to decode its mysteries. Part 4. Why the Rosicrucians threatened the powers of Europe. Why would a hidden brotherhood focused on spiritual transformation cause fear in Europe's most powerful institutions? Because the Rosicrucians held an idea, more dangerous than any weapon, the idea that you don't need permission to awaken. At the center of Europe stood the Catholic Church, a spiritual empire, a political empire, a force that shaped not just belief, but identity, law, and loyalty. The Church claimed it was the only gateway to salvation. Through its priests, its sacraments, its authority, souls could be saved. To challenge that system was heresy. The Rosicrucians dared to suggest something radical, that the divine spark was already inside you, that enlightenment was an inner path, that no priest, no ritual was required to reach the divine. To the Church, this wasn't just a theological disagreement, it was a direct threat to their spiritual monopoly. But the danger didn't end there. Europe's monarchies and ruling powers also depended on control, on shaping people who would obey. If the Rosicrucians taught individuals to think for themselves, to explore inner freedom, to question authority, then they threatened the political order as well. An awakened mind is hard to rule, a sovereign soul is impossible to enslave. And so the backlash came. Rosicrucian texts were banned. Mystical thinkers were condemned. Philosophers exploring similar ideas were branded as dangerous, rebellious, sometimes even heretical. The Rosicrucians, always secretive, became even more invisible. They hid their networks. They encoded their teachings. They spoke in symbols, allegories, in ways that only the truly dedicated could decipher. Their survival depended on silence and subtlety. Here's the paradox. The more they were hunted, the more their whispers turned into wildfire, their shadows into legends, their silence into a roar across time. Artists, scientists, mystics, rebels. They all drew inspiration from Rosicrucian ideas. The Enlightenment, the rise of modern esoteric societies, even revolutions of thought and spirit, echoed their influence. Why? Because once a powerful idea enters the human story, it's almost impossible to erase. You can burn the books, you can silence the voices, but the core truth remains. True transformation comes from within. So why did the Rosicrucians threaten Europe's great powers? Because they reminded people you don't need thrones, altars, or priests. You already carry the gateway to divinity within. They offered a vision of freedom no institution could fully control, and that, more than any rebellion or uprising, was the revolution the rulers feared most. Part 5. The living legacy of the Rosicrucians today. Many think the Rosicrucians were just a medieval myth, a phantom brotherhood lost to the shadows of history. But here's the truth. Their legacy never disappeared. It simply evolved. Today, you'll find groups around the world who claim the Rosicrucian lineage. Some operate as formal organizations, offering courses, rituals, symbols. Others exist as loose networks of seekers, sharing ideas quietly outside public view. But beyond the names, beyond the formal structures, the real legacy of the Rosicrucians is something much deeper. Something alive, within the very fabric of modern spirituality. Let's break it down. The Rosicrucians taught that the universe is a vast interconnected web, that science, art, philosophy, and mysticism are not separate, but facets of the same cosmic truth. Look around today. You see echoes of this everywhere. In quantum physics, where scientists explore the strange, almost mystical behaviors of particles and energy. In modern psychology, which delves into the subconscious, dreams, symbols, and archetypes. In mindfulness and meditation movements, where seekers turn inward, searching not for external authority, but for direct experience of presence and being. These are not isolated trends, they are signs. That the Rosicrucian impulse, the call to unify inner and outer worlds, is still at work. But there's more. The Rosicrucians championed the great work, the idea that every human life is a journey of transformation. Not transformation imposed by society, but self-initiated, self-discovered, self-realized. This wasn't just philosophy, it was a challenge, a call to awaken, and today that call still whispers. Every time you question a limiting belief, every time you break free from old patterns, every time you choose awareness over reaction, you step onto the Rosicrucian path, whether you know their name or not. So what does this mean for you? It means you don't need to join a secret society or memorize ancient texts to access this wisdom. You are already standing at the threshold. The ancient symbols echo through the world, the timeless patterns hum beneath your skin, and among them, perhaps none holds more intimate power than the one you carry every day, your name. The journey of the rose and the cross. The unfolding of the soul within the struggles of the world is a path every human being is invited to walk. You are the alchemist, the seeker, the initiate. The great work is your own life. And here's the most powerful truth. The Rosicrucians understood that when even a single person awakens, it ripples outward. Their transformation shapes their relationships, their communities, their world. This is not just about personal enlightenment. It's about collective evolution. It's about planting seeds of light in a world that desperately needs remembering. So as you step away from this story, ask yourself, where are the symbols showing up in your life? Where is the call to awaken, to refine, to rise? Because the greatest legacy of the Rosicrucians was never secrecy, it was ignition. A living fire passed from soul to soul, generation to generation, waiting for the moment you choose to awaken. And now, the torch is in your hands. Final CTA. You've now glimpsed the hidden world of the Rosicrucians, a brotherhood of symbols, secrets, and spiritual fire. But your journey doesn't end here. What if the next key to unlocking your life's potential was hidden in something as simple as your name? Ancient mystics believed that names hold power, that every letter, every number, every vibration shapes your destiny. In the next episode, we dive into numerology and the vibrational power of names. Discover how your name carries energy, how hidden numbers reveal your strengths and challenges, and how you can use this knowledge to reshape your path. This isn't just curiosity, it's a tool, and once you learn to wield it, nothing will ever be the same. Watch the next episode. Your name is waiting.